All right, boys, let's talk about how the 23 draft is going. Of course, Chet was drafted in 22, so he's not going to be in this video. He's great, of course. And to the surprise of no one, we are going to start with Wemby. So, a couple things with Wemby. He's been playing at center more often, which I think has helped his rebound numbers get kind of insane lately. The Spurs have also phased out of the Sohan point guard experiment. Now it's more so a Branham, Keldon Johnson, Devin Vassell, point guard by committee, Trey Jones, obviously the backup. And Sohan might still get some opportunities here and there. And yes, if you watch any Spurs game, you are going to see times where Wemby either is like cut into the basket, maybe if somebody sets an off-ball screen for him, or he's got a seal around the rim, or just within the flow of things, he's got an opportunity around the rim, but whoever has the ball misses him. And I do think the discourse got like a little crazy there for a minute where it was like, are the Spurs players intentionally not looking for Wemby? Like, look, I think it's just a team of not natural playmakers who are seeing passing windows a second later than they should, or they're just not confident to make the pass. I mean, Trey Jones is the best passer on the team, of course. And you combine that with the fact that the Spurs offense is not exactly the beautiful game 2014 finals Spurs, we'll put it like that. And like, yeah, it's going to look rough sometimes. As far as Wemby's, like what it looks like on offense for him, it's just a mix of a whole bunch of things, right? It's some screening on the ball, it's some face-ups, it's some post-ups. Like he had in the Pelicans game recently a couple post-ups on Brandon Ingram that looked pretty good, or like he's spinning off of Ingram in the post and able to get a lob. In their two recent Laker games, you got plays where he's like driving past Christian Wood on a catch on the wing, and then that's a dunk, or he's like closing the distance that Jackson Hayes is giving him after like a fake DHO action, bump into him, go to a hook shot. A couple times in their recent Rockets game going at Jabari in the post where he just looked like physically overwhelming Jabari on some plays. There was, of course, also the dunk on Şengün. Like, all the signs are there to me that Wemby can be a matchup nightmare, like against, I mean, everybody's smaller than him, but, like wings, forwards versus centers, going off the dribble versus certain guys, all that. It's not perfect all the time right now, of course. And, we can talk about the jumper now. I mean, he's in the 20s on threes, he's in the low 30s on mid-range, and I think some of the threes are fine, some are a little more like, you didn't really need to take that one. Whether it be pick and pops or spot ups or occasionally some pull-ups, like he's pulled up in transition a few times. I mean, yeah, he's going to have to get better as a shooter. I also feel like he will. As far as the defense, so when he's guarding centers, he's in more of a drop coverage as opposed to like the help defense coming off of wings and stuff. I mean, he's still been playing with Zach Collins a little bit here and there, but it's a lot more of just Wemby at 5. And so, he's on Şengün in the Rockets game, he's on Vooch in the Bulls game they just had, stuff like that. And the thing that I noticed in the Pelicans game was just the amount of times that they just wouldn't shoot the ball when he was in the paint. At least most of the time. I mean, Herb Jones had a really tough layup over him in the Rockets game. Şengün had like a couple shots over him. Valanciunas had like a couple over him in the Pelicans game. Like, it's not like he's stopping 100% of things around the rim because nobody is. With that being said, I think you still have to be very encouraged. And I mean, just as far as lineup data goes, the Wemby at center with Malachi Branham in there instead of Zach Collins, in recent games has a defensive rating of 99, which is actually an insane number. Obviously not a very large sample size, all that stuff. Still, you should be very encouraged with Wemby's at center. But if I didn't make it obvious enough, yes, I think very highly of Wemby. I think he is on track to being one of the best players in the league. But, you got to get there first. And as far as what the Spurs are going to look like around him over the years, I don't know, man. Now let's go to Scoot, who had the beginning of his season kind of altered there because of an injury. But since he has been back, he's been able to show off some more stuff. He's definitely able to get downhill, whether it be on pick and rolls, whether it be some DHOs. I mean, in the Mavericks game, he's like beating Tim Hardaway Jr. at like basically half court, and then he just throws it down on, well, I think the paint was kind of open for him. In their game against the Warriors, not the one they just played, but one from like 10 days ago now, he's got a play where like Brogdon screens for him. He gets Saric on a switch. He like hits him with a between the legs dribble, freezes him for a second, gets downhill, finishes with a Moody kind of helping on the wing on him. He had a similar play against like Yurtseven in the Jazz game where he kind of freezes him on like a rejecting a screen and gets downhill. So like you do have these moments, but what you also have is something that I think is pretty normal for athletic point guards who can get downhill and everything, which is sometimes he just takes on a little more than he really should with, just a bunch of bodies in the paint. And then it's like, ooh, we appreciate the spirit, Scoot, but also that was a tough finish trying to get around 3 dudes, As far as the passing, I mean, I do think his turnovers have calmed down a bit from like the first week or so of the season. He could pull off some good stuff. I mean, he had a couple of he had one skip pass to Jabari Walker in the Suns game that was really good, but he also had 5 turnovers in that same game where a lot of them being, he'll like reject a screen from like Ayton on the wing, get downhill, and then like Eubanks was waiting for him at the basket, so he's trying to make like a wraparound pass to somebody, and then it's just, sometimes you're just getting caught up in the air, I guess. And again, normal like athletic rookie point guard things. As far as the floater and the pull-up too, I mean, the pull-up too was a big thing for him coming into the NBA, and I mean, it looks really cool, I'll put it like that. But yes, he is shooting 29% from mid-range right now. I feel like that number will go up. Now, as far as like minutes and usage and everything, I mean, the Malcolm Brogdon Scoot thing is like a thing among Blazers fan circles right now because it's like we want to see Scoot and all that. It's just, and to be clear, I get it because I've been in the same spot as a fan myself. It's just like Chauncey is going to play Brogdon. Brogdon is going to handle the ball a lot. He's going to take his shots. They're probably going to trade him around the deadline, whatever. And then Scoot is going to be brought along a little more slowly, which is probably going to be fine in the long run. And like that's just how this stuff goes, man. I think my expectations for Scoot were also a little too high to start his career. Again, he did have the ankle injury. Still feeling good about him, though. Anyway, let's go to Brandon Miller now. Relocating from the wing to the corner when Terry Rozier is driving, which, by the way, I would love to see Brandon Miller with LaMelo more often, but okay, it's just, LaMelo's hurt right now. Things like Miller catching it on the wing, pump fake, 2 dribbles in, getting to the pull-up. Coming across a couple of down screens, stagger screens, pin down, whatever you want to say. And then from there, it's take a couple dribbles in, and then maybe it's getting to the floater, or, a recent one in the Philly game where overall he had a rough shooting night, but there was one where he runs a pick and roll, and then Embiid actually comes up high on the screen, and Miller crosses over and actually splits the sort of, not a hedge, but I guess like a high drop, if you will. He was able to finish inside on that one. He's at 38% from 3 on the year. Obviously, we like that number. Yeah, man, I think while sure there's some inconsistency between the shot making right now, which is a normal rookie thing, or sometimes his handle might look a little awkward, he's probably got to get a little better there. Again, normal rookie wing thing. But all the signs are there to me that Brandon Miller can be someone who can play off of a main ball handler like LaMelo, but also handle more ball handling duties himself in time, which he gets a little bit right now, but not a whole lot. It's definitely like the Terry Rozier show with LaMelo out. And I guess the big swing thing for Miller is probably going to be how often he gets to the rim, how many free throw attempts he gets, stuff like that. Now let's go to Jaime Jaquez. The big thing with him coming into the NBA was he likes to operate within the three-point line, and, will that work in the NBA? Well, luckily he ended up on Miami, who are totally fine with you being the player that you are. I mean, he had to get better from 3, and he's already doing that, and that's good. But I like how Miami's allowing him to sort of spot up sometimes on the baseline or in the dunker spot. They're allowing him to just kind of get downhill, they're running pick and roll for him, Spain pick and roll for him, and Jaime is just how strong he is already going at NBA defenders is kind of wild. I mean, it makes sense. He was a 4-year guy. He's 220 pounds. The recent one against the Hawks, he's got a play where Clint Capella switches onto him, and he just kind of doesn't care. It's left-hand dribble, spin off of him. I think he drew a 3-point play, or at least finishing through contact. Did a similar thing against Bogdanovich, where it's between the legs dribble into a back down, which then becomes a hook shot, and it's all happening in 1 second. It's just craftiness, strength, size. He's gotten his cutting on a bit as well. The three's been better, like I mentioned. Also, he knows what to do on defense. I mean, he is routinely playing over 30 minutes a game. Miami got another one. As an NBA fan, I'm happy for him. As a Celtics fan, I'm they are never going to go away. The guy had 10 free throw attempts against the Bulls. It's just my goodness. Now we go to Derek Lively, who, he has missed the last few games, and that's rough, and I don't know if there's a timetable for his return, at least the last time that I Googled it. If I missed something, my bad. But, and of course with Lively, it was, lob threat, rim protector, and yeah, all that is real. The most noticeable thing to me for him on defense is when he has these straight-up contests at the rim. And of course he can move well. When he's on the court, they've got the equivalent of about the 15th best defense. When he's off the court, they dip to about equal to the 20s. And as far as the dunks, he gets off the floor really fast. The second jump is fast. And when he dunks the ball, man, there's an extra oomph behind it, if that makes sense. And obviously he's a lob threat for Luka and Kyrie. And also on offense, he is making some plays, in the open floor, if there's 2 to the ball and the ball handler, 1 dribble to the rim and then a gather step finish, or making the play out to the corner. That stuff is really intriguing as well. I think Lively has just been great and more than you could have asked for, I think, going into the season. Asking a rookie to play 25 minutes a game for a playoff team, that's really impressive stuff. Now on to Ausar Thompson, who did miss a lot of time because of an injury, but did recently get a 20-minute stretch versus the Mavericks, so I just locked it on that. We actually did get some Amen cooking. We got one double behind the back dribble, rejecting a screen into a gather step where he fakes a pass and then makes a floater over. I don't remember who the defender was for Dallas. We also had a couple of pull-up 2s or a floater over Rashawn Holmes on a deep drop as Jock Landale was screening for Amen. Thought his energy on defense was pretty good, whether it's just guarding a Tim Hardaway Jr. drive or helping on a Seth Curry mid-range, he's helping from the wing a little bit. It was cool. We just need to see more of him. I do wonder how Udoka's going to manage the Amen minutes, because outside of that 20-minute game, there have been a couple of lower minute games, and I mean, look, clearly the mission for everybody involved with the Houston Rockets this year is be an actual team, which they've accomplished so far, and I've very much enjoyed watching them, and I love their defense and everything. It's just that if that's the energy you're going with, then for a guy like Amen, it's like, is he going to be able to get 25 minutes a game and be able to run second units and all that? Well, the one thing he has going for him is I think, like his brother, he could also be a very good defensive player, so that could help. It's just, the leeway is just much smaller on this Rockets team this year. Cam Whitmore also had some good drives in that game, showing off what he can be. Now we go to Ausar. Little Ausar defense update for you. In their last one, or the recent one against the Nets, he was on Cam Thomas a lot, a little bit on Mikal Bridges, and he was just chasing Cam Thomas around screens, and I thought it was just good stuff. I mean, Ausar's screen navigation was noticeable from day one. In the recent Jazz game, he had a couple plays where like he's switching onto Fontecchio, or he's like closing out on him, but he's doing it with like purpose, which led to him like losing the ball and Ausar getting credited for a steal or whatever. And in that same one, he like played just tough defense on Kelly Olynyk and got him to travel. Ausar he's just a disruptor on defense, and I've already said nice things of how I think he can be a connector on offense. Obviously, some of that depends on the jumper, but attacking off the catch and all that, we've all gone crazy over the rebound numbers. Ausar's great. When will the Pistons win a game? I do not know. Now let's get to Pods for the Warriors, and I've already said nice things about him recently, talking about I like how he relocates off the ball. I like how he's willing to cut and all that. I like his quick decisions with the ball and everything, but to add on to him, his recent one against the Blazers, one play that just kind of sums up Pods to me, where he gets a screen from Jackson Davis up top, and he like kind of spins into the screen off of Simons, and then he like crosses over to his right hand, and then like swoops the ball across his body as he Euro steps past a Reith at the basket, and he finishes, and it's just like, yep, that's Pods. It's craftiness and the handle, the whole thing. And of course, he's a good passer. Next, we have Keyonte George, who just had maybe his best game of the season before he went down with an injury there. An interesting thing is that Keyonte is shooting better on pull-up threes than he is on catch and shoots. Some of the stuff we saw in Summer League for him, just the tough jumpers, some of that's carried over so far, so that's cool. The Jazz do run some actions for him that are cool. Like they'll run like some Iverson cuts, like when you go from one wing to the other. Sometimes there'll be like a screen or two screens even for him when he's doing that. I like when he throws it to like Walker Kessler or whoever, and then he immediately sprints and then like gets the DHO, and then we're flowing into like a pick and roll or whatever. Recent one against the Thunder, he like got by Chet on a switch. He in the Blazers game had a couple times where he's like rejecting a screen or just using the screen and then going right at DeAndre Ayton and drawing contact. I mean, Keontae's free throw numbers have been silently climbing the past few games before he went down. We've got lobs to John Collins off Spain pick and roll. We've got bounce passes to Walker Kessler on the roll. Like Keyonte George, look, he's a rookie, so like sometimes the turnovers are going to be there and not all these tough shots he's attempting are going to go in. But there's definitely something there with Keyonte. Okay, now we are going to get to Anthony Black on the Magic, who, sure, the stats do not jump out at you, but when you watch him, it's just kind of solid play after solid play, man. I mean, in their last one against the Pacers, he did have a really nice block on Halliburton on a drive when he was helping off of, I think it was Nembhard, but he had a number of plays where he was like helping off of Nembhard, and he's like helping on like an Obi Toppin drive and getting him to pass out, and then Paolo's closing out to Nembhard. Or a play where it was a handoff action. It might have been Goga or Wendell, I don't remember, but because Wendell's back now. And then it's just a quick kick to Cole Anthony for a three. Black will randomly just like screen off ball for guys within the flow of the offense, or it'll be more of a set play where he'll like screen on the ball. He's been able to get some like rolls to the rim off of that. He's a good cutter. The closeouts are good. The sort of just the defensive stance or the ball pressure or just the way he keeps his head on a swivel looking around everywhere defensively. Like Black, just a smart player doing solid things, man. And yes, there are questions about like how consistently can he get to the basket and where will the jumper get to. I mean, right now, his three ball does have a bit of a windup. And as far as like pull-up shooting, like, yeah, that's going to be something he's going to have to build hopefully over time. Like, I think it is fair to question where he can get to as a scorer, but as far as just a player doing positive things, yes, definitely. It feels like Coulibaly's release has been faster. Maybe that's just me seeing things, but it just looks like it. And he's like really confident with the way he's getting into these catch and shoot threes. His percentages have been good recently for the Wizards. His handle, I think, is good enough to where he can like attack on a straight line drive right now. I think asking him to do more than that right now would probably put a little too much on the plate for him, but like that's fine. I do think that in time he'll be able to handle more ball handling, probably also putting on a little more weight to where he can handle more like physical drives and all that. And then of course we see how good of an athlete he is and everything. Like I am pretty optimistic about Coulibaly, where I feel like he can be this like Swiss Army knife for the Wizards and play in just a whole bunch of different lineups and be switchable and be a help defender and the whole thing. But again, he's probably got to put on some more weight, get a little better on the handle, things like that. I do want to talk about Craig Porter Jr. real quick. He did go undrafted, but we're going to consider him for this draft anyway. It's crazy how there are just going to be random stretches where it feels like he just takes on a lot of responsibility for the Cleveland offense. Earlier in the season it was happening. It happened again recently with like a 19-point game for him. Like, you'll just see these pick and roll reps he gets, or like bounce passes to Jared Allen, or finding Max Strus when he's moving off ball, or flowing into pull-ups, or like getting physical and then making a turnaround jumper like from mid-range. It's just like the amount of confidence, and sometimes the way Cleveland leans on him, it's just like, this dude went undrafted? Like, what happened here? But it's not every single game. I don't want to go like too crazy, but certainly Craig Porter Jr. is cool. Now let's get to Taylor Hendricks, who actually has been playing for the Jazz recently, although in his last few games he actually hasn't gotten a lot of minutes. I don't know what to do with that, but just for a refresher on Hendricks, the thing with him is like he's an athlete who you hope can like be a lob threat, can make threes, be a help defender for you, and probably play like some center, but more so as like a big wing type of guy. And the long-term question is like his off-the-dribble stuff, pretty much. And defensively, I mean, in the Kings game, he was playing off of Trey Lyles a lot, a little bit off of Davion Mitchell, a little bit off of Kevin Huerter. In the Blazers game, he was playing off of like Toumani Camara, some possessions on Malcolm Brogdon even, some on Jabari Walker a lot. He's got his arms stretched out pretty much all the time. And, in the Kings game, he did have some nice efforts. He did get like a couple of threes made over him by like Kevin Huerter or Keegan Murray, as Keegan was making basically every shot in that game. I thought Hendricks' contests were fine. In a recent one against the Pistons, there were a number of times where he was like ended up switching to Bogdanovich, or he's just closing out on Alec Burks, switching on to Marcus Sasser, and throughout all of it, I was like, dude just looks super solid doing all this, man. And then as far as the three ball, the intriguing thing with it is how quick he's getting it up. Also, he's been shooting it like okay so far. Cason Wallace, I recently said nice things about him and talking about his like ball pressure on Jaden Hardy and stuff. He's tough on the ball. He understands defensive rotations, and he still has basically not missed his jump shots this year. It's wild, even if the volume is not super high. And also for a guy who is, 6'4" is what he's listed at, he does find himself around the rim a lot, whether it's like dunker spot or not being afraid to get in the mix inside or setting a screen along the baseline. I don't know. We do have to mention Toumani Camara with the Blazers. I'm just going to say this, man, whenever I watch the Blazers, he is extremely noticeable with his defense, hustle, and I don't know where his offense is going to get to, but based on how spirited he is when he's out there, I feel like he's going to work pretty hard on it. Let's see, Grady Dick and Jett Howard just haven't really played much. Marcus Sasser occasionally looks like a pull-up god or a step-back god. He'll have like random games of like 5 threes or whatever. Jarris Walker hasn't played a whole lot. And Jordan Hawkins, he hasn't gotten as much minutes since the Pelicans' main guys have come back. I do think Jordan Hawkins is ready to just be a gunslinger as far as what the percentages would be on more attempts and more minutes. I don't know, but that dude definitely is ready to shoot some buckets. And lastly, Julian Strawther. I just think he's a good fit with the Nuggets. I feel like, just movement shooter. It just makes sense.